Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Geek-Stew. And today, guys, welcome back to another episode of Conspiracy Theories with Ike. That's right. And today I'm wearing a Macho Man's shirt, so yeah. So when this video is up, it's going to be Friday. I'm actually going to be on vacation. Well, not vacation. We go to a theme park with my family every year, so you'll be seeing this while I'm hopefully enjoying some nice, unhealthy food, like carnival food, if you will, and whatnot. But I hope you guys are all enjoying your summer. It's been pretty warm here in Indiana, so I'm not really vibing with that. And I have to run the AC, and that just costs money. Whew, man. But anyhow, to kind of get into our conspiracy theory today, this one's actually, I don't know how to say this except for that it's really terrifying. And we'll kind of get into why, but it's kind of one of those things where it's really hard to conceptualize. But when you really sit down and you think about it, it's absolutely terrifying. It's mind-boggling, and it makes me want to cry a little bit. So let's get into it. Today, we're going to be talking about the prenatal quantum nightmare. Now you, much like myself, when you hear the words prenatal, quantum, and nightmare in the same sentence, you're probably thinking, what the actual fuck? Why is there any reason for those three words to exist in the same sentence? Why is this? Why, God, why? Because that was my example and my experience with this. And while I was researching, because, research, that was exactly what I said to myself. I said, why in the hell do these three words exist in the same sentence? And I really wasn't happy with the result, but I guess that's why we're here, is to talk about it. So this is going to be kind of like some context. This part's going to be a little bit of context because I do have to tell you some information before we get into the theory itself. So the information we need to talk about is string theory, right? String theory is infinite number of parallel universes, all right, period. That's pretty much the small and short of string theory. Basically, it's the thought that there are an infinite number of parallel universes that run parallel to us. The concept of parallel universes really play into a lot of other conspiracies, right? Including things like the Mandela effect, which is a really interesting and honestly something that's terrifying in some ways. But there's all kinds of other theories that play into the concept of string theory and parallel universes. And obviously, a lot of these are horrifying, of course, but basically, I just have to explain briefly that this theory relies heavily on the belief that there are infinite parallel universes that exist. So if you don't believe that, I guess, then maybe this won't be a believable theory. But if you think that it might be real, it might be true, that's kind of what makes this really scary, is that if you believe that string theory could possibly be real, then this kind of adds to a very horrifying concept. Now, something else to note about parallel universes and the general thought process is that basically in these parallel universes, they're very similar to us, but with some minor distinctions or even some major distinctions. Things as far as like there's a universe where we're all clowns, or there's a universe where you or I don't exist. And there's actually another theory that I'll probably talk about at a later date that really dives into this a lot. But this one basically is talking about the concept of you or I simply existing. Now it is time to actually talk about the prenatal quantum nightmare. When I say that, prenatal quantum nightmare, I'm just like thinking to myself, if I said those words to somebody without any context, like they would probably institutionalize me, like legitimately, like how does prenatal, quantum, and nightmare ever fit together? Now it's starting to sound weird in my head. So, as we mentioned, infinite number of parallel universes means that anything can happen, right? Any of these things can happen. Any of these universes, every possible outcome, every possible consequence, everything exists in that, expansion, right? So in a lot of those, you and me, the viewer, we may not exist. There might be a parallel universe where my parents didn't have sex, which is horrifying to think about. Well, not that they had sex, or that they did have sex. That's horrifying to think about. But in a lot of those universes, you and me don't exist, and that's fine. This handsome face can exist in every single universe. Just wouldn't be fair to the rest of us. But that being said, The nightmare, so basically to kind of break this down, right, the quantum aspect of this has to do with like the parallel universes, right? Prenatal has to kind of do with the fact that you and I are before birth, we're not born yet, or we don't exist yet, right? So before we exist, parallel universes. So you're probably thinking to yourself, where does the word nightmare factor into this? Like the concept of quantum universes and everything else is already kind of scary, but the nightmare comes in play with the following. So you and I don't exist in these parallel universes, but some people believe, because there are certain laws that people kind of abide by, that your and I's consciousness exists in those parallel universes. So in these parallel universes where you and I don't exist, where we weren't born, our consciousness still exists. Okay, you follow me? So we're not born, we don't exist, but our consciousness does. And our consciousness exists in that universe, and they are fully aware that I don't exist, right? My consciousness in this separate universe where I've not been born is painfully aware of the fact that it does not exist. Okay? So I just want you to think about that for a second. There is a parallel universe out there where you do not exist. In that parallel universe, your consciousness is still alive. Maybe it's connected to you. Maybe there's some underlying reason, but that consciousness is still there. It still exists. And it's aware that it doesn't exist. It's aware that it wasn't born. It's aware that there are other versions of itself that do exist. But it is aware that it doesn't exist. What? So obviously this has a whole lot of implications for like our day-to-day lives and stuff like that, not existing and all. But the very thought process, like I want to meet whoever came up with this. Like who was sitting there one day and just popped into their head that, hey, maybe my consciousness exists in another universe, but I don't. And therefore, it's very painfully aware of the fact that it doesn't exist and that there are other versions of itself that do exist. Like, this sounds like some really fucking weird, like, Inception movie where, like, Leonardo DiCaprio wasn't ever born in the universe, so, like, his consciousness is just floating through the infinite expanse of space and time. And it's basically like, oh my God, like, there are other versions of Leonardo DiCaprio that do exist, and, like, there are these famous actors and stuff. Like, it's kind of a weird thing to think about. And honestly, it kind of makes my eye twitch, like make my eye itch a little bit. Or maybe that's a stroke happening. Who knows? I guess we'll find out. So the kind of the long and short of this is that infinite universes, you and I don't exist in some of them, which I guess is bound to happen. There are infinite amount of outcomes and possibilities in these other universes. So I guess it's always possible that, that's going to happen, right? Infinite number of possibilities, infinite number of outcomes, truthfully. So, I mean, that part makes sense. Now, obviously, you kind of have to believe in the whole concept of parallel universes first, and then secondarily, you also have to believe that our consciousness, our consciousness exists, right? That our consciousness still exists, but we don't. So it kind of also plays into the whole concept of consciousness exists, we don't exist, but the consciousness is able to think and be aware of things, and therefore is aware of the fact that it doesn't exist. Which is truthfully terrifying. Because, like, imagine basically being nothing, right? Being nothing, floating in nothing, but having the thought and having the cohesion and the coherent ability, not cohesion, that's like a science term, but the coherent ability while you're floating around in this nothingness to think, I don't exist. Like, you're able to say to yourself, I don't exist. I don't exist. Do I exist? Am I having a mental breakdown right now? No, I'm kidding. But it's seriously though. I think the thing that really gets me about this theory, and the reason I wanted to talk about it, was just the mere thought that you or I could have enough coherent thought as a simple consciousness to be able to say, I don't exist, and then having to basically deal with that. Like, I don't know if there's a way to, like, your consciousness to commit suicide, but, like, if I was just some, like, random consciousness floating out there and I was able to put together a coherent thought that thought, I don't currently exist, I would definitely be questioning my entire sanity. Well, I guess if I'm just a floating consciousness, maybe sanity and insanity is irrelevant. But you would think that not existing but can you then not exist, or do you exist? Does consciousness exist? Is consciousness in itself just like existence? I'm getting a headache. Okay. Anyways, so that is prenatal quantum nightmare. The weirdest 3 set of words that I've ever heard put together in a single sentence, but it happened. This conversation happened. The infinite amount of existential dread that I feel at this moment in time is at an all-time high. I mean, it was pretty high before, but boy, oh boy, is it high right now. So we're going to end the video there. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let's go into some final thoughts so I can cry for about 5 to 10 minutes before the next shot. Gotta drink some water. Give me a second. Jesus Christ. Having existential crises within a small amount of time is very thirst quenching, or not thirst quenching. Makes you very thirsty, I guess. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that. It was actually a pretty short and simple video, realistically. I mean, like, obviously the implications and the fallout of the whole thing is a very terrifying reality. But I mean, realistically, it's a pretty simple theory. Basically, you and I don't exist in some parallel universes, and in those universes, our consciousness is aware that we don't exist, and it's an infinite nightmare of prenatal quantum variety. So, very fun times. I enjoyed talking about this. The research of this was pretty good, actually. There was some resources in Google. Like, I didn't have to 100% rely on Reddit. But I do want to give a quick thank you to Cicada1205, again, for this wonderful iceberg. This iceberg is actually all, again, Cicada1205's. So if you want to follow him on Reddit, or I don't know how Reddit works that well, I really don't use it except for apparently icebergs. Apparently I use Reddit for 100% iceberg-related content. But yeah, feel free to, run out there and look at it. It's on Reddit. He's a really cool dude, or a person. I don't know who they are, honestly, but they're really awesome. I really thank them for this iceberg, because this iceberg is really detailed, and I always show it. Like look at this thing. This thing is monstrous. And this theory came from one of the middle tiers, like not the very bottom, but like either the one above it or the one above that. So this one's a pretty deep conspiracy theory. Now, obviously not as deep as God's ego death, the final understanding, or God's last wish. All of those set me on a very weird spiral into nothingness for a moment, but this one's still pretty weird. It's still pretty interesting, though, and it's not too... Because some of these conspiracy theories get very, very niche, and they get very, very specific, and not like in a good way. Like, the only people that are going to understand this theory is somebody who was like alive for like a very specific amount of time and like was able to experience certain things, or people who experience certain time periods of like social media. You know what I mean? Like, there's one that was talking about like I don't remember, but it was basically like you had to be on 4chan between the years of like 2012 and 13 in order to understand it, which obviously I wasn't. I've never used 4chan, at least to my knowledge. But anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed. If you did enjoy, please give us a like and a subscribe. I've actually noticed that I've been getting more subscribers. I'm at 21 subscribers currently, and I'm super stoked about that, obviously. So thank you all for supporting me and continuing to watch my videos. My conspiracy theory videos have been doing really well, and I think that's for a reason. Conspiracy theories are really awesome, and especially when you talk about these different icebergs, they're just very entertaining. So that being said, I'm going to end it there because this video is going to probably be about like 15 minutes-ish, and I want to kind of keep it around that. So hope you guys are enjoying your time. Hope you guys enjoyed the 4th of July weekend. I hope you guys are enjoying your summer. Stay safe, stay happy, stay awesome, stay healthy, and we will see you in the next one. See ya.